Hi everyone, welcome back to a new video. In this video, we're going to understand how we can able to save our data in a database using JPA repository in a Springboot application. All right. I'm not going to waste much time and we'll get started. So first thing, we need to create a Springboot project and we need to add some dependencies over there. All right. So now what I'm going to do is, so we'll open a browser over here. Okay. So here I have my browser. What we can do is, I want you guys to open Spring Initializer. So just type as, or if you have already the project, so then it's no problem. And if you're creating a project for the first time, so you can go for Spring Initializer. And here I'm in the Spring Initializer right now. So I'll just click on the Spring Initializer and you can give your the name which you want for your project, so you can define over here. So in my case, I'm doing a Java project, so that's why the language I have selected as Java, and it's not a Gradle. So Gradle, Ruby and Gradle Kotlin is used for mobile application. So right now we are doing a Maven project, so that's why the web application. So I'm selecting as Maven. All right. So now next. So here you need to specify your package name. So I'm going to give a package name as com.backend. So I'm not going to build an entire application. I'm just showing an operation how we can able to uh, do it. All right. So com.backend, and here I'm going to give the project name as a backend over here, and this is going to I'm going to keep it the same. And here, instead of com.backend.backend, I'm just going to keep as com.backend. That's all, very simple. All right. So now you can specify whichever you want, either jar or var, whatever you want, and select the Java which you need. And next we are going to add the dependency. I hope you guys are clear with this particular portion. And next we are going to add our dependencies. The first dependency which I'm going to add as, so just type as web. We can see Spring Web over here, web dependencies. So I'm going to select this one. Okay, Spring Web. And the second one I need is DevTools. So why DevTools? Because it doesn't require to restart the application every time whenever you make any changes in your application. So for that reason, if you can see here, there is something called live reload. So when you save the file, automatically this restarts our application. So that's why Springboot DevTools. So not related to the coding part, but this is related for the development environment or development experience, which is mentioned over here. Enhanced development experience. So I'm going to select this one. And the next one we need is JPA repository. So we are going to save the data using JPA, right? So that's why Spring Data JPA. All right. So next one we need a MySQL connector. Okay, so I'm going to take MySQL driver because we're going to connect to our database, right? So for that reason, I'm going to select this. Okay, so all our dependency is done. So the next step, what we're going to do, we'll just click on this generate. So this is going to download a zip file. Okay, this is going to download a zip file over here, and we'll extract that zip file, and then we are going to import it in our Eclipse or Spring Suite ID. So here is our backend which we downloaded just now. I'm going to extract this like this. Okay, so it's been extracted over here. So now what I'm going to do is I'll go for my Eclipse ID over here and file, or you can just click a right button here as well, anything is fine. Click on import, and here you need to search for Maven. Okay, Maven. So when you search for Maven, you will get something like this. So since the project has been initialized in a Spring Initializer itself, so that's why it is considered as an existing project, but it's a new one. So select existing Maven projects, click on next, and next will import or will select where our folder is saved. In our case, or in my case, it's saved in the download folder. I'll go to download folder over here, backend, just click on this one and select folder. All right, so here we got like something like this. So when I click on finish, if you see bottom right side, it is showing as importing Maven projects. So this will take some time, and here we can able to see our application is getting loaded. If you see, there are two folders and 1 2 3 4 4 files. When the import gets completed, you can see more number of folders and files work here. So this will take some time to download and update the project. So in the meantime, what we are going to do means we are going to create a database in the database section. Okay, so if you have already the database and the table, you can follow in your case. But if you want to create from the scratch, means you can. So I'm using MySQL Workbench work here to create a database. And if you are following with H2 database or a lightweight database, means it is going to be the same. Yes, it's all about the database connection which we are going to give in application.properties file. Okay, so here we have SQL or MySQL Workbench which is being opened right now. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to close all these files which has been already opened. So I've been using for different files over there. And next, now I'm going to create a database, a new database. So what I can do, here there is an icon directly to create a database, or what we'll do, we'll write a query for that. Okay, that is going to be very nice. So create a database, and you need to specify the database name. So as of now, I'm going to give the database name as backend. Okay, backend. All right, so run this, and here the left side you can able to see. Okay, if it is not, see here you can see it's not been created yet. So it's been created but it's not been refreshed. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'll just click a right button, refresh all. Here I can able to see my backend, and I'm going to keep it as the default. And here we have our database got created. So now we are going to create a new table over here. Let's say I'm going to create a table name. You can create any table you want, just you're trying to save the data in the database, right? If you have already your own table, you can follow with that. And yeah, that's it. So I'm going to create a table name called customer. I'm going to store the customer data inside a table. So the table name which I'm going to give here is customer. So probably it's not so visible because the icons here, it is very small. I don't know how I can make able to increase this, but we have a feature in YouTube or in the video. You can just zoom it and you can able to see that. All right, so customer, and so the column name. And first of all, before I pursue with this, if you are new to our channel, please subscribe it. And most of them are visiting our channel. 97% people are not subscribing it. So please do subscribe so that I'll get motivated to make a many number of videos, and I can bring a lot of content to you in the IT industry part. All right. Okay. So let's give first one. I need an ID. So which is going to be a customer ID, and this is going to be a primary key and a not name, and also I'm going to give it as an auto increment. All right. So the next one, I'm going to give customer name. Customer name. Okay. So varchar, that's fine. And here the next one, I'm going to give date of birth, like this, date of birth. I hope spelling is correct. PI. Okay, even for me also it is very small. All right. The next we are going to give as a phone, and this I'm going to give it as int. And next one, after phone we'll take it as the email, and then address, and next we're going to take a username and a password. Just we'll take it. Okay, username and a password. All right. So if you're already working on a project, means there would be some different columns, but just try to map this columns with your case. All right. The main intention is we need to the data. The main intention is the data. So I'm just click on apply, and I click on apply. Okay, I will click on finish. All right. Okay, so here, so now the first thing what I do is, first I'll insert a data inside this table. Okay, I'll insert some data. Let's say insert into customer values. Okay, no problem. So we'll add it later, or it's better to add one data over here. Okay, inside values, so first one is 1, and next we have a customer name. I'm going to give customer name as Abhinaya. The next one, date of birth, let's say 13. Oh, we need to give it in the quotes. 13 6 1999. And next we have the phone number. I'm going to give 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. The next one, we have an email ID, abhi at mail.com. And next one, we have address, Bangalore, or you can give any address you want, just sample data. Abhinaya is the username, and the password I'm going to give as 1234. All right, so here the data been stored. If I do select start from customer, you can see one data has been inserted. All right, so now our application has been imported. Right now it's been successful, and if I expand this now, you can see many folders has been created. You can, before it was only 2, so now we can see a lot more. Yes. All right, so I hope everyone is clear till here. All right, okay, good. So here the first thing what I'm going to do, I'm going to expand this source main Java folder over here, and you can able to see com.backend. All right, so I'm going to create few more packages over here. Okay, so like this, the first one is going to be just select source main Java new and go for package. So I'm going to give the package name as this has to be perfect, so this has to match for this, otherwise you will get an issue. So backend I'm going to give entity. Okay, so I'm going to copy this package because I want this to use it later. So entity folder or entity package where we're going to store all our models or entity. All right, so entity is done. So next one, I'm going to create one more package, com.backend.controller. All right, so where this is our main controller where we are going to create the APIs. And the next one, we are going to create a repository. Okay, so here we import a JPA repository in this particular package. And the last one, we are going to use the service where we enter it all the service, right? So that is what it is, service. All right, so I have created all the 4 packages, and the next step what we are going to do is we'll go for this application.property file. All right, so here go for source main Java, expand, click on application.properties. So here we are going to give the a backend connection over here. Okay, so we are going to give the backend connection. See, by default, or I'm using MySQL Workbench, so everything is going to be the same, and only the driver name is going to be different, and the username and password is going to be different based on your application. Okay, so now let's do that. The first one what we are going to do is spring dot data source dot url is equal to, here the default one for MySQL Workbench. So suppose if you are using Oracle or in Microsoft or Oracle SQL Developer or H2 database, which is a lightweight database, if you are using, the driver name is different, but everything is going to be the, whatever you are seeing, spring.datasource.url, that is going to be the same, just the driver name is going to be different. So suppose if you are using MySQL Workbench, which I am using right now over here, which is this one, so then you need to follow this one. Okay, so JDBC Java database connection : MySQL colon forward slash to forward slash, then local host, it is a local host, right? So local host and colon. By default, your MySQL Workbench will run at the port number 3306. So that's what it is. Localhost 3306 forward slash. Then you need to give your database name. So what was the database which we created in our MySQL Workbench? It was backend, right? So it was the backend, the same name. All right. So backend and a question mark. I'm not going to use SSL certificate, so that's why I use SSL is equal to false. So this is our driver name which you're going to give. All right, so this is a connection. Then the next one, you're going to give the MySQL Workbench username and the password. So spring dot data source, spring dot data source dot username. Username is equal to root. In my case it is root. So next one, same spring dot data source, data source dot password is equal to, in my SQL Workbench password is this one, so that's why. In your case it would be different if you have give a different password means. So this is what it is. So now the next step, we are going to start the application. So just select the backend and we need to check whether all our dependency has been correctly installed or not. So select it, run as Java application or Springboot application. Okay, and this will take some time, we need to wait for it. See, before okay, here you need to select your backend application. So where you have backend, here I have backend application com.backend. So just click on OK. All right, so if you find any issues, we need to understand and we need to fix that. Okay, all right, so let's see. Okay, cool. So if you see here, started backend application. So what I'm going to do, and the port number is 8080, right? So I'm going to open this com.backend application.java. Here I'm going to write one print statement which says, for our convenience, so I'm writing this application cc. I'm just saying this file, I'm not going to start the application. The saved, see the bottom here in the console, it reloaded automatically. If I slide this to left side, you can able to see that printed statement which we just added. Now application started. So our application is set to get started for our coding. All right, cool. All right, so now we are going to create all the files which is required for us to build this or to complete this operation. The first one, I am going to create a customer controller. All right, so where we are going to create the API work here, customer controller. All right, so in the com.backend.controller package. All right, so customer controller is the first Java file which we are creating, and inside entity we are going to create the customer model or the entity over here. So customer, and this has to be the same name whatever your table name is in the database. All right, customer. Okay, so this has to be same name, and here we are going to use the repository where we are going to use the JPA repository. We are going to import the, or we are going to implement the JPA repository with this particular package. So here I'm going to give this customer repository. All right, so here it's got created. Oh, I just made a mistake, I'm extremely sorry. I'm going to delete this particular file. We need to create an interface. By mistake I created a Java. So select this com.backend.repository and right button and go for new, go for interface. So customer repository is the file name, just click on finish. So here a interface has been created. The next one, we are going to create a service, new and what we would need, we need a class. This is going to be customer service. All right, so just click on finish. All right, so there are few things you need to do it by default. So first one is going to be controller. Just go for the controller over here, and in the controller you need to add an annotation over here, which is at rest controller. So I'll tell you the reason why we are adding this. Just import it. Okay, so how your Springboot application or your job application is going to understand that this is a controller, and here we are going to create our APIs, how it is going to understand. So to make our Springboot application understand that this is our controller, you come here and pick the APIs. So that's why we are giving the annotation as REST controller, or you can also specify the just controller itself, that's also fine. I'm going to use a REST controller. Okay, the next one is going to be our customer.java file. Okay, so here whatever the fields we created in your database or the customer table, like ID, customer name, date of birth, everything, all this we have to write it over here. Okay, so there are a few things. First one, you need to do an annotation that this is an entity. So this particular entity or the model is has to be same as in your database table, and we need to mention that this is our entity. We need to tell our Springboot application that this is our entity, take the values from here. So we need to do an annotation as entity. That's all. Done. Cool. The next one, we are going to include all the fields. The first one we had in our database was ID, so that's why it's of type integer, so int ID. Okay, next one, string, string customer name here, right? Customer name, date of birth, phone. Next we have a date of birth and phone. So string date of birth. Next we have phone, which is of type integer, phone. Next, what we have next? Email, address, username, password. So string email, string address, string username, and string password. Got it? So here whatever we have in the database columns, same way we have created all the values over here. The next thing, we need getters and setters for this. So just click a right button over here and source, go for generate getters and setters. Okay, because how you go, okay, I'll show you. So just select all, click on generate. So what does this mean is, whenever you want to set a value for an ID or whenever you want to set a value for customer name, so we don't call this particular variable, we call this method, which is set customer name. Okay, so this is how you're going to set the name for a customer name or a customer name variable. When you want to get the name, we use get customer name method. So for that's why we need getters and setters. And here if you see at the console, we are getting some errors. So that's because error creating bean with an entity manager. So that's because, see, this is an entity and it has to be some a ID and generated values. So here we have gave this as auto increment, right? The ID we have gave as auto increment while creating the table. If I'll show you here again, see here we have created an created as auto increment. So for that reason, we are going to make this as this is our ID mentioned as ID annotation, imported. The next one is generated value. So this is going to be an auto increment. So for that's why generated value strategy is equal to generation type dot identity. Okay, so here just import this, that's all. Okay, the generated type, generated value has been imported, and if I scroll down, see now you are not getting any errors at the console, right? So application started without any issues. So controller annotation is done, customer.java is done. So now we go for customer repository. All right. So the customer repository, what we are going to do is, so we're going to import the JPA repository over here. All right. So the JPA repository. So what we can do over here is just make as extends. Oh, oops. Extends JPA repository, and this will take two parameters. The first parameter I am going to give, what type of JPA repository is this? This has to be an entity of type. Which entity of type? We have created an entity type called customer. So I am performing an action for customer entity type. So that's why I'm going to give this as customer, and you'll get an error. Just hover your mouse over here like this, get an option to import it. So it's been imported, and if you see the import, it's been imported from com.backend.entity. So com.backend.entity is this one. We have customer, the customer type, and here we are going to fetch, or the unique thing over here in all this is id. Id is going to be a primary key, and that is going to be an auto generated value and auto incremented value as well. So whenever we want to do pick the unique customer data, means we will pick with their IDs. So IDs of type integer, right, in the database which we have given. So that's why we're going to give an integer. So done. All right, so the repository file is also done. So now we are going to go for customer service. Okay, so customer service, what we are going to do is very simple. Now it's very simple. So in the customer service.java, we need to specify, or we need to make our Springboot application or our Java application to understand that this is our service. Whatever the code you are going to execute, come and execute from here. So for that reason, at service, import it, done. So here we have specified all the annotations or all the functionalities which needs to be done for all the different files. So now our application, our complete application is set. So we can go ahead and do our operations. Okay. All right. The operation which we are going to do now is, so we are going to insert, or we are going to add the, or we are going to save the customer data in our database. All right. So if I go to the database right now, uh, if I open this table, I have two data which has been added already, Binaya and Ironman. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to write the code to add the data via backend application using JPA repository. All right. So the first thing, so we have created our service, right? The customer repository over here. So using this customer repository with JPA repository, we are going to save the data. So since we are using a JPA repository in customer repository, so I am going to create an object of customer repository in my service. Getting? So now what I'm going to do is, so here, so let me copy the name over here so that I won't make a mistake of this. So that's why, and here I'm going to keep this as private customer repository, and I'm going to create an object of customer repository. Okay, so customer repo, I'm going to give as customer repo. Okay, is an object of customer repository. So here you'll be getting an error. Just hover your mouse over here, like this. Oh, my screen got stuck. Nope. Okay, so just hover your mouse like this, and you'll get an option to import it. And if you see the import, it's been imported from com.backend repository.customer repository. So where we have our customer repository, com.backend.repository, inside that we have customer repository. So that's why com.backend.repository.customer repository. All right. So now here we have an object of customer repository, and also we need to have one annotation called auto wire. So why auto wire? Because so it's like connecting a wire from customer repository to over here. Okay, it's like a dependency injection. All right, cool. So now next one. So now we are going to create a method. It's not going to return anything. So public void method name would be save, or I'm going to make it as add customer. Okay, add customer. So this customer need to save the customer data, right? So whenever we are receiving from the front end, or from the, for example, as of now we are using just only the back end, so we'll be using Postman to save the data, right? So whenever we are receiving, we'll receive the customer object, the object which contains all the customer data. Okay, so that's why this will take an argument of type customer object. So this customer which I have been highlighted over here is an object of customer. Okay, so here we have our entity, right? So which means, so whatever the data which we are going to enter, that has to be of type this one. Got it? Good. So now let me hover my mouse and we can import it from the entity. Got it? Now using repo. Okay, now customer repo dot save here into pass your customer object, and with this particular statement your code is done for saving the data in the database. That's all, a very single line. But as a good developer or as a programmer, you need to handle it very carefully. So I'm going to use, and here it's done, but it's better to use try catch exception, oops, exception e, and like this. So this statement I am going to keep inside try. If some issue happens, we'll catch it with the exception. So let me print the exception over here. Let's say error at adding customer. Okay, here I'm going to print that exception. Okay, so now here, once this statement is complete, I'm going to print in the console saying customer added fully. Okay, so done. Got it? So now we have written our method, or we have done our operation. Just we need to call this method in our controller. Let's go to the controller over here. Okay, so now in the controller what we have to do is, so we need to call the method from the service and we need to create an API. Okay, so let's do that. The first thing, you need to call the method of the service add customers. So I'm going to take the service and let's say private the customer service, and I'm going to create an object customer, oops, customer service is an object of customer service. And same way we'll do the annotation over here, auto wire. Okay, done. So now we are going to create a one more method over here which is going to call the method which has been written in customer service. All right, so now let's say public void get customer is the method, oh sorry, not get customer, add customer is the method, add customer is the method. So this will take an object. So for that's why we need to use a request body. So request body, let me type it first, request body. So what does this mean is, so this method is expecting some data to be entered while running the API. So request body, what we are expecting, or what that method which is written inside customer service is expecting an object of a customer. So now request body, we want customer object, so please give us the customer object. That's all. Okay, so customer This is an object. Let's hover a mouse and import this request body over here. Done. Okay, so now what we are going to do, using this method, customer service dot add customer, which is been written over here, add customer, we are going to pass the customer object. So here the object which we will be receiving from this method, that we are passing it over here. All right, so now we will create an API for this. At we are adding a data, so we should not use get mapping, we need to use post mapping. Post mapping, and the method or the API name which I'm giving is add customer. Okay, so just hover your mouse on the post mapping and import that post map as well. Okay, just hover your mouse and import it. That's all. Save the files, all the files. Got it? So here application started, there is no issues in the console. So now our last thing which we have is add the data. And if you come over here, the customer .java, the entity, these are the types of data which we will be adding, kind of data. So I have prepared already the JSON already over here, the sample JSON over here, which is exactly like this. Oh, it's not customer ID, I need to give it as an ID, and has to be ID. But one more thing, here we have added generator. Okay, this is not required. Let me remove this. Okay, we have customer name, so let me copy the customer name. It has to be same. Okay, customer name. All right, so date of birth is correct, phone correct, email correct, address correct, username, password. So all the data we have, this is a JSON format. Okay, so okay, once again I am going to copy this. So what we are going to do, we are going to use Postman now to add our data. Okay, add our data. Why we need to use Postman? Because in the browser we have only the get, we don't have post mapping, right? So we don't have post mapping in our database, I mean sorry, the browser. So that's why we use post mapping. So when you get the front end, it doesn't require to use the Postman. So Postman is for testing your backend application. All right, so you can see what kind of requests all are going. So here I'm going to open a new tab and I'll go for the body, uh, body raw. This has to be a JSON because the input I'm giving in the form of JSON. Okay, so here we'll give our URL. We know that our application by default is running at the port number localhost 8080. You know that. Okay, let me show you again. Here you see here at the console, your application is running at the port number 8080. So that's why localhost 8080 slash add customer is our API which we created just now, add customer, right? So we are going to pass the customer object data. Okay, so whatever the data you are passing, this all data is going to convert as an customer object. Okay, so here we have gave this method as post mapping, so we need to select the method type as post. Okay, so let's say I am going to make this AP. Okay, let's send it. Okay, so I'm going to clear the console over here. All right, so clear the console. I'll go to my Postman again, and I'll also show in the database. So we have only two data, which is first one is Abhinaya, second one is Ayaman. Now we are going to add a data named as Vasu, and let me send the request. Send, and it's sending. Okay, so let's see in our console. We can see in our console we got a message as customer added successfully. So where we have written this print statement, we have written this in our service, customer added successfully, right? Let's go to our database and check whether the data has been added or not. So these are table customer. So if you see, Vasu data has been added successfully, right? So do you wish to add one more data? Let's do it. Go to Postman, and here I'm going to give as Chris, and Chris, and 1 2 3 4, keep it like this, and here Chris, let's say Chris, and Evans. Done. All right, so this is one more customer which I'm adding. So let me send it again. Okay, so here we have in the console one print statement which is customer added successfully. Now if we send the request again, sending it again and sent, and if I go to my backend application, here we got the one more print statement which is customer added successfully. So let's cross check in our database. So let's go to our MySQL workbench or the database. Go here, select start from customer. So here you can see before it was Abhinaya, Ayman and Vasu. Now the Chris data has been already added. So now I hope you guys understood how we can able to add the data in your database using JPA repository with Springboot framework application. I hope you guys understood. If you did, please do like this video. And if you are new to our channel, please do subscribe it. So let's meet in our next video. Until then, take care. Goodbye. Bye bye.